Oh, you put it afterwards. I said put it before, damn it.
That's where I put it earlier today.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to move it for the purposes of this?
I mean, it's up to you.
This is how all good podcasts start. They start with two opinionated people messing around in a Google Doc. Right then, we should start with some follow-up.
We should. You've been reading a website.
Yes, last episode we mentioned a series of blog posts about a particular team's experience developing a Melty Brains robot. I have now actually gone back and read all of those posts. I think specifically you wanted me to have looked at the software side of things a little bit for some reason.
Yeah, because I thought you might actually understand what was happening.
Well, it's interesting because there's a lot of the stuff that they explain in the blogs is maths and stuff like that, which I glazed over a little bit. I'm sure I could understand it if I needed to, but I didn't spend a great deal of time trying to understand it. I did have a quick look at their GitHub and had a quick look at the code that they've written, and it's amazing how different embedded software development is to what I do. Like, there's a lot more what I would describe as magic. There's sort of like, I remember one of the things that they sort of said is if you name this method loop or something, it will just be run repeatedly in an event loop. And it was sort of like, why that name? What causes that method to be called repeatedly and all that kind of stuff? So there's a bunch of sort of stuff that happens outside of that environment, and I guess it's just because it's like on an Arduino, and there's this layer of abstraction to try and take away some of the complexity of embedded systems programming, which is a nightmare. So there's a fair bit of what I would perceive as magic, but that's because I've not got any experience programming Arduinos. But it did also occur to me that it's no different to the magic that is public static void main.
Oh, yeah, I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah, string, like an array of strings is the argument, and that is just the entry point to a Java program. So it's sort of, there's magic in all these things.
So can you rate their code out of 10?
I'm going to give it a Androne 4000 out of 10.
That'd be an Androne 4000 out of 10. You didn't plan that ahead, did you?
No.
But any other feedback on that whole build diary?
The build diary is really interesting. I did really enjoy reading it. Obviously, there is a lot of maths that you glaze over. If you want to build a Melty Brains, I would think that that's a good place to start looking, just to sort of understand the concepts. Like they go over all the various ways of dealing with like drift and all that kind of stuff, and how you can combine several methods to get a more accurate way of dealing with drift, and the pros and cons of each and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of information there, and obviously there is the code that you can take if you're using an Arduino as well. You can take that code.
Do you think it's something that you'd be capable of doing?
Yes.
So Melty Brain split decision when?
You had to bring it up, didn't you?
That'd be number 5?
Well, I say yes. I think I could do all the software stuff. Like, I'm confident that I could learn all that.
And hardware's easy.
But like one of the other interesting things from that series of blog posts is just like they're talking about like the G-forces involved. You think a tiny little robot spinning, it's not going to be that big, but like there are big numbers at play there. So I think there were 3-digit numbers involved, weren't there, for G? Yeah. So I think the hardware would be more complicated or harder to do. Maybe, I don't know. They had
an ant scale rather than a beetle scale. So yeah. I think they were making a beetle, weren't they? Or even a lightweight.
I think it was a beetle.
Yeah, so at ant scale, it might not be as bad.
No, I think that I liked their solution of having like the main structure of the thing, which is a ring of metal, like a solid ring of metal. Oh, it was a
beautifully made thing.
So there wasn't anything that was going to, like, if we did it, it would be stuff bolted together, and I wouldn't want to be putting hundreds of Gs through that. But
we'd also be making it in a far less efficient way.
Yeah.
I think the reason they had such high G loads is that they had a really efficient design in terms of sort of MOI.
Oh yeah, it was everything on the outside edge. It was sort of incredible. They're just completely empty in the middle of the robot.
Whereas our box with the stick approach probably wouldn't be quite as efficient.
Yeah, I can't remember. Did this robot only have one wheel, or was that an example that they showed at some point?
I can't recall. I think this was 2 wheels.
I think this was 2, but you can do Melty Brains with 1 wheel, which I sort of didn't really know, but it's kind of cool.
It's still spinning, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it makes sense that it works.
Yeah, I'm glad you learned things.
Yes, interesting blog post. You should all go read it.
I too have been learning things. My what's the word? My naivety has been crushed on the issue of links versus switches with one very simple and very effective argument, which is very simply that switches tend not to fail safe, they fail dangerous, which is the most compelling argument so far in favour of links.
So what if a switch breaks, it's going to stay on?
It's got a good chance of staying on, whereas if a link breaks, it either comes out or gets damaged in such a way that it breaks the circuit anyway.
Yeah.
it's very difficult to imagine a way for a link to fail dangerous. I'm sure there are some fringe cases where it can happen.
You put enough current through it to weld it to the connection points, but not so much that it melts anything.
That's pretty much what I was thinking, yeah. So yeah, a very simple argument, but a very important one. Shortest follow-up ever from me.
I'm so proud of you. Let's dive straight into some front matter then.
It's been an exciting week.
It has.
In which Battlebots Season 4 has been about 90% confirmed. A lot of people getting very excited about it being 100% confirmed. I'm not quite happy to say that yet. Until I hear the words Battlebots Season 4 from Battlebots, I will have this little note of caution in my head. So they've currently announced that tickets will be going on sale for an event of, happening on roughly the same dates as Season 3.
Mm-hmm.
Roughly the same amount of time as Season 3. All formatted the same as Season 3.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of teams have been, posting builds and things like that would be for a Season 4. Indications are very good. However, I still want to hear it from Discovery that we are getting a televised season.
So I know that BattleBots used to have non-televised events, like BattleBots was like a thing outside of television as well. Is that still the case?
They have mentioned the potential of doing some non-heavyweight events as kind of a Robo Games replacement.
Okay.
But this is something taking place over, 10 days? Whereas you'd expect an event like that. The old ones they did were pay-per-view events that I think were a single day's worth of action.
Okay.
And if they were doing something kind of Robo-Gamesy, that would most likely be a weekend.
So in modern BattleBots, have they ever done like a non-televised event? Has there ever been like an event announced like this that is a tournament that then doesn't end up on television?
I think there was something in around 2009. And they did some weird sort of collegiate things and stuff like that. But in the modern era, no.
Okay. I mean, I think it's fairly likely that there's going to be BattleBots Season 4.
As I say, 90% confirmed.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be the person that went, BattleBots confirmed on a podcast, and then it wasn't.
I mean, I'll have to check what you tweeted, but I thought that seemed pretty...
Admittedly, I did tweet that before I'd started thinking, but I think all aboard the BattleBots hype train is not mentioning the words season and 4.
Yeah, okay. I think you got away with it.
I'd be excited for any BattleBots event. Just more excited for Season 4.
Yes.
Talking of exciting series, BoggleBots is continuing.
Mm-hmm.
We have at least one special episode to come, a sort of UK versus rest of the world, coming next Monday as we record now. So that's the... something of February. The second Monday of February. I'm good at numbers.
Point is, it will be after this episode. No, before this episode is released, I suspect. Maybe. We'll see.
You're playing down your own editing there.
Well, busy man. We'll see.
But yeah, looking forward to that.
Yep.
Now, however, we have a scheme. This is a scheme that's been afoot for a while to fill the tournament void. We've got King of Bots 2 coming up, but not yet. BoggleBots has just finished. BattleBots Season 4 may be coming, but currently there are no active series.
Mm-hmm.
And during these void times, we can do two things. We can either take a break or invent something stupid, and we've gone for option number 2. We still don't have a name for this. It's currently called Ryan's Totally Not Complicated Tournament Idea. I think we need a better name than that.
Does that go into a condensed form easily? He says, having forgotten the word acronym. Does it go into an acronym?
It's a tunkata.
Tunkata.
Or a tunkati, if you want to put idea on the end of it.
Ah, dear. Tunka tournament.
But here's what we are doing. We are doing a fantasy tournament involving every single robot from the reboots of both BattleBots and Robot Wars. As far as I can gather, that makes a total of 160 robots. If you look at the list that will be in the show notes and realise I've missed one, please say so I can fix it before we get too far. It is every robot that is featured in a televised heat of Robot Wars Series 8, 9 or 10. Every robot featured in the main tournament bracket of BattleBots on ABC, plus robots that were involved in any televised or highlighted qualifiers. It's also every robot involved in at least one Discovery Fight Night battle or a basement battle on the official BattleBots YouTube. Breathe. It's a lot of robots.
Yes.
There are a couple of places where two essentially identical robots have fought under different names, such as Magnetar and Pulsar, Gigabyte and Invader. For simplicity, in those cases, I'm including both of them. However, numbered versions of a robot like Gabriel and Gabriel 2, which was still just Gabriel, Nuts and Nuts 2, they are lumped together as one.
Okay.
Because versioning is not enough.
Okay.
These have been sorted into 32... Is it 32?
I don't know. You're the one that organised this.
Yeah, into 32 1v1s and 32 three-way melees. The winners of which will then go into a 64 robot bracket. It's going to be a long one.
Oh my God.
I should point out, we're doing this in more than one episode. This isn't a 6-hour episode.
Yet.
The way it's going to work is that for every single matchup, we're going to discuss the relative strengths and weaknesses of the robots and then assign odds in the form of a roll of a die.
Mm-hmm.
So if we feel that the bout is sort of overwhelmingly in favour of one robot, numbers 1 to 5 on the die would be for them, and 6 for the underdog. Same with 4 to 2, and maybe 3 to 3, but that's for losers, and we're not that wimpy. We're going to force ourselves into decisions here.
If you say so.
On the roll, the winner is the winner, even if it is the underdog. We are trying to represent here the slightly random nature of robot combat.
There can be no re-rolls.
No re-rolls. What are we doing if it doesn't land flat? We need to... There are rules and procedures here. There are re-rolls if it doesn't land flat.
I mean, this is a sufficiently rounded die that I think will be all right.
Maybe we need to clear the entire desk to make sure nothing can go wrong.
I mean, how hard are you planning on throwing this thing?
Oh, I'm an aggressive die roller. When we're discussing a robot, we're assuming that they're working at their best. So, for example, Iron Ore 6, we didn't see its flipper work in Robot Wars. We've seen it work in live events. So we're going to treat it as a flipper, not a wedge.
Mm-hmm.
But we're also going to take into account the overall sort of pattern of reliability. So modern Hypershock, for example, we would be taking into account the possibility that it just won't work. Matches happen in the First Name Robots home arena under their home rules. All of the arena hazards, including Fog of War and House Robots, are present and active.
Oh, no.
But-
Really? Fog of War?
Yes, Fog of War.
We're going to go with Fog of War.
Yes, we're going with Fog of War.
Okay.
The only adjustment to rules is that we're not allowing entanglement in either arena because entanglement is stupid.
Okay.
We're allowing flames in both because there are a couple of robots in here, well, one robot that is very reliant on their flame. It'd be harsh to rule that out just because insurance in England is a bit, ooh, no, can't have flames. That was my rushed explanation of the rules. There is a very large document detailing every rule with every possibility that I have foreseen. How are we feeling, Sam?
This is going to be interesting. Shall we make that rules document available
It will be in the show notes.
somewhere in the show notes?
Yeah, it will be in there. It's only about 3 pages. It's not too bad. Any queries about rules?
None so far. I guess it's worth sort of just... We're probably going to come across rules that we haven't described just now at some point in the future. Just because we're explaining rules the first time they become irrelevant doesn't mean that we're making them up as we go along. Like, Ryan has gone to a lot of effort to make these rules ahead of time.
Shockingly, I've put far too much detail into this. So yeah, there are a couple of things about, versions of robots and so on that will come up when we get to them the first time.
Yeah.
They're all planned for.
Yeah.
Sam, would you like to lead the way?
Oh my goodness me, this is going to be an interesting journey. So we start then with the first fight of this tournament, which we need a good name for. Expulsion versus Pulsar.
Expulsion versus Pulsar. And we come to our first unexplained rule. I really thought it was going to help break the rules up, but no, we're straight into it. So we have an issue with both of these robots, but more with Expulsion, where 2 different robots have fought under that name.
Yes.
So in Pulsar, it was just a versioning, so obviously we're going to go with the more modern one. That's an easy choice. For Expulsion, however, we have 2 very different versions. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a decision on this now and stick with it through the tournament if they progress. We're not going to go for Series 9 version first and then Series 10 when it suits us. So we're going to try and pick the most effective one for all situations. So which version of Expulsion do we feel is better? The sort of blimp or the football?
I'd say that the other one that's more like a quaffle.
Oh, what?
A quaffle.
Is that Harry Potter?
Yes.
But that's still a ball.
Yeah, but like, just it doesn't matter. Like,
Just an angry ball.
The particular shape of this spinny ball reminds me of a quaffle. Anyway, I don't know which of these because, like, I feel like older Expulsion, the sort of flat one, should be, like, looks like it should be a better robot, but I seem to remember that it wasn't particularly good. It didn't work very well, and
It was so long, with a wheelbase so narrow that it couldn't really turn.
turn or anything. It was very ineffective. And I remember that the newer one, I feel like it hung around longer, but it still wasn't very good. Like, it got stuck on its weapon a lot, didn't it?
I think the reason it hung around longer was the format meant that you couldn't immediately be dumped out in the melee.
That's true, yeah.
So it had more fights because it was guaranteed those fights, not because it necessarily earned them. I would say, though, it was more drivable. It moved around more and it showed more signs of doing the things it was designed to do.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the Quaffle version. Quaffle's Falchion.
Quafflebot 4000. No, I think I agree. I think because I think newer Expulsion was closer to what they wanted, I think.
Not very close, but still closer. And it's also the one we've seen more of, so I think we can make better judgments of it.
Okay, let's go with that. Quaffle Spulsion.
Now, this is quite an easy one because this fight actually happened. Well, technically it was Expulsion versus Magnetar, which is basically Pulsar.
Okay.
And unsurprisingly, Expulsion got punted up in the air a couple of times and broke.
Okay.
So I think this is quite an easy one to start on.
I think we're going to go 1-5, aren't we?
I think we are going to go 1-5, yes. So, would you like to prepare the die for the first roll? You can do the roll. I'm not doing it. I'm not taking responsibility.
I don't know if you want to hold your mic close to the table for this, or...
It's a big moment. So, Sam's preparing to roll the die. If it lands on 1, it will be a win for Expulsion. Any other number, a win for Pulsar. Sam, take it away.
No way! God,
well, we did say
damn it.
that we were accounting for the randomness of robot combat.
Look, we could cut this segment and re-roll. No one has to know.
For the slower among you, it has landed on 1.
I can't believe it. Expulsion has won.
I'm now trying to envision the circumstances under which this happens.
I mean, how?
I mean,
would that...
Pulsar just goes up in smoke, surely.
I mean, that has happened.
Pulsar just as a wedge should win this.
But, like, Pulsar has... Let's try and justify this. Pulsar did, like, burn out its motors quite a lot in the first time we saw it.
I
guess
did.
The second one less so, but did it still burn out at some point?
Yeah, they ended up running random ESCs in the wrong place just to get through their heat final, as I recall.
Was that the second Oh, yeah, because it was Magnetar that worked better, was it? I can't remember now because
marginally,
we talked about it a lot, but yeah, I'm willing to go with the idea that Pulsar blew itself up, and that
because that's the only reasonable explanation.
That's the only possible explanation for this, and Expulsion is just one by default.
Wow, that's a great start, and it could get worse from here. Next up, Androne 4000 versus Bombshell.
Which version of Bombshell are we going to go with?
Well, there's two things to consider here, because if we go with the original version, we've also got 4 weapons to choose from. I think we're both going to go original version here, aren't we? The robot that came second in Battlebots versus the one that shouldn't have made the final 16. Pretty easy call.
Yes, I think Bombshell V1 is what we should go with.
Excellent. So now we need to work out which weapon they're going to use. Unlike with versions, we won't be sticking with this. If they go through, we'll make the same sort of decision again based on the opponent they're against, because that's why you have interchangeable weapons.
Yeah.
What's going to work best against a Crusher out of their 4 options? Axe, Lifter that we never saw, horizontal and vertical.
I bet they'd go with the vertical. Or possibly the horizontal.
It depends if they're in an offensive mode or a defensive mode. Because the vertical was by far their most effective in terms of raw power.
Yeah.
But then if they'd seen Androne fight nuts, they might be thinking that actually the adjustable height horizontal is perfect to snipe those hydraulics.
Yes, because that's exactly what they tried to do with Tombstone, wasn't it?
Yeah, they went for the chain. That was also their plan against Cobalt, but they ended up going for the tyres instead.
Yeah. I think because we've got history of them trying to snipe things with the variable height horizontal, should we go with that?
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
With the intent they try and snipe Androne's fluid ducts?
Yeah, it'd be a good choice. Fluid ducts. Welcome to the title.
I regret my choice of words.
I think the horizontal is a good choice as well because it gives a reach advantage over a Crusher.
Yeah.
It keeps them away.
Yeah.
It does give them some slight balance issues, but I think Androne would have a decent chance of getting under them with the vertical on. So it doesn't really give them any disadvantage to go horizontal.
What was Androne's driving like?
Pretty good, as I recall. I think the fight against Tauron in particular, they had a couple of really decent chances to get some grabs in, which they made by driving well, and it was just the shape of their machine that got in the way in the end.
Yeah, so there's probably a fairly good chance that they'd be able to get around the back of Bombshell to get a good grab from there, if my memory of how Bombshell looked back then is accurate.
Oh yeah, it had quite a flat back end, as I recall.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it ran forward, sometimes it ran backwards, depending on the weapon setup. The issue I've got in defining odds for this is my inherent dislike of Bombshell.
Well, I think we're going to end up going 2-4 one way or the other, because you're not going to let it be an even thing.
Oh, no. And bear in mind, this is happening This is the thing. I would say that Bombshell has to be the favourite in this. You know, a Battlebots runner-up versus a robot that did reasonably well in a Robot Wars heat. But it is in the Robot Wars arena. Androne is the home robot here.
How's that
So
going
we do have house robots to consider. And Fog of War, of course.
I mean, Fog of War. Is anyone going to release Fog of War in this?
Well, I imagine Android would look for the pit. That would make
Yeah.
Fog of War and Rogue House Robot options.
That's true.
Now, broadly speaking, Rogue House Robot never really changed a fight. But if Androne, you know, every Crusher is a control bot, if they can make use of the arena in that way, I think that is their one route to victory.
Yeah, so the House Robot's going to be Kill-A-Lot and Shunt, right? Because of the spinner.
I'd say it's probably not a powerful enough spinner for them to necessarily go that way.
I think that's the most likely thing that they'd...
That's the general pattern.
Yeah. Because I don't think, like, Kill-A-Lot is like a big menacing kind of robot, but it doesn't really ever do a lot of damage.
Yeah, Kill-A-Lot's always kind of held back. The only one that
Yeah.
ever really went all in was Matilda.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure that having Kill-A-Lot... If we assume that Kill-A-Lot and Shunt are the ones that are in there, which I think is a safe bet,
Yeah.
I don't think Kill-A-Lot is likely to change the flow of that fight meaningfully, and I'm not sure Shunt would either. I mean, it
Not
might
really, no.
I mean, it might break Bombshell's weapon
What, just by being a big
just
wall?
by being there. Yeah,
I think it's got to go in Bombshell's favour then, hasn't it? Just on the relative merits of the two robots facing up to each other. The only thing that I think the arena changes is the presence of the pit, which only has a 1 in 3 chance of opening anyway.
yeah,
And then Android have got to get enough control over the opponent to get them in there.
yes. I think it would possibly be a fairly close fight because I mean, Bombshell doesn't even need to snipe those components. I think if it just gets a hit on that arm, it's going to pretty effectively neutralise the offensive ability, the proper like damaging offensive abilities of Androne. Androne can still control a little bit, but it's not going to be able to do as much damage anymore.
I still don't believe that there's a huge amount of power in that horizontal setup. It's a precision spinner rather than a power spinner.
I would have thought it would still like bend the tooth on Androne.
I mean, it's not a sort of carbide tier
No,
spinner, is it?
that's true.
It's been effective because it's been able to target specific elements of an opponent.
Yeah,
You know, soft spots.
2-4 then, like 4 to Bombshell.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Okay, 1
Do you
off.
want me to record the Foley every time, or are you going to use the old Foley?
I mean, it'd be easier if you record it every time. So what is it? 1 and 2 is Androne. 4 and up is
3
3
and
and
up.
up. Sorry, is Bombshell.
Good numbers.
Good numbers. You ready?
I would say thankfully, but it's a 3. Bombshell goes through.
3. Bombshell has taken that one.
Can I just point out how weird it is to be essentially commentating on die rolls? It's not a situation I ever imagined myself being in.
This is the most ridiculous thing we've ever done. So moving on, we have Complete Control versus Overdoser.
So Complete Control wins, moving on.
Complete Control's got the flamethrower.
And Overdoser's got the wooden armour and frame.
The wooden armour. I don't think we need to discuss this for very long.
I don't think we do either.
So
5 and 1?
5 and 1.
If a 6 comes out, I'm quitting this idea.
Okay, right. So a 6 gives it
A
to
6 is Overdoser.
Okay.
Everything else is Complete Control.
Okay.
And it's a 1. Moving on.
Complete Control has won. Great fight, guys. Great fight.
Don't think we need to go through a whole sort of mental calculation of how it wins.
No,
I think just turning up
Yes,
is largely what it needs. It could be a fun fight, actually seeing a robot set on fire properly. I don't think we've ever really had that. We've had things like Diotor on fire, where it was just a skin.
Yeah, there's nothing structural that's been on fire, really, other than, like, obviously, batteries catching fire.
Having a robot actually burn to the ground would be quite fun.
One day.
Moving swiftly on to Lockjaw versus Traction.
Lockjaw's weapon, then.
You see, part of me wants to say let's just always use the jaw, because that is the true lockjaw weapon.
Well, so are we... What was... I can't remember what the rules are about versions now, is it? Do we have to pick a version and stick with it? Because, like, I would... Is there enough of a difference between the lock... Because the lockjaw that we saw in earlier Battlebots never used a spinner. Like, was it even interchangeable at that point? Or
the spinner was new for 2018, but was interchangeable with the lifter grabber. So what we're doing, technically, is we're choosing the most recent version, because it has the two.
Okay.
The most recent version can also be the old version, so it makes sense.
Okay. Because I was going to propose that we could pick the old version and then never have this discussion about lockjaw again.
I'd love to do that, but I think we can't justify it as a better robot, a more effective robot in its old form.
Okay. So it's got to...
It's going to be the spinner for this, realistically,
they're gonna use
isn't
their
it?
spinner, yeah.
The only thing that might affect that is if Traction managed to come in with Vulture's wedge again.
I wouldn't...
Which they did against Apex.
But that wasn't like an official part of the robot. Right, have we got rules? Have you considered this? Have we got rules for in the pits kind of helping each other out?
I have rules for armour, which is that if robots have interchangeable armour configurations, that is taken into account. So Bronco, for example, would be the sort of prime idea of that. I personally would say that because it was used in a fight, it counts as one of their armour configurations.
Despite the fact that it wasn't designed with that in mind.
Yeah, if we were to say, oh, they're going to come in with Rapid's flipper wax on the front, then I'd have an issue with it. Because it's something they used in combat, and because Vulture is also part of this, I hope.
Control F.
Whew, yep, so because Vulture is part of this, I think it counts. But you're welcome to disagree. And then we'll have a stalemate that we can't solve.
Well, yeah, so I mean, with that in mind, I mean, Lockjaw's pretty likely to just go with the spinner no matter what it faces, really, because that was just its policy throughout all of BattleBots Season 3, right?
Yeah.
And then I would say that Traction are quite likely to put the wedge on then, aren't they?
Mm.
Which is a shame.
Which will make very little difference to the...
It's a shame from an aesthetic point of view.
Yeah, it's also a shame they won't have their entirely ineffectual old Robot Wars gang Crusher on.
We must have discussed this. How did that count as an active weapon?
Well, the Crusher would have, and then when they put the wedge on, I think they gave it a lifting mechanism.
Okay.
Spurious lifting mechanism.
Yeah. Okay, so Traction with a wedge then.
Yeah, it's still 5-1, let's be honest.
Yeah.
We've gone through... It feels harsh, but...
I know.
Especially because we're in the battle box.
Yeah, that's true.
There's next to no knockout potential.
Yeah,
Traction with or without the wedge, really.
They don't stand a chance in that arena, yeah, because they'd need the pit to do anything, really, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Maybe the pulverizer, the screws, and the saws can somehow combine to give them a win, but it's very unlikely. In BattleBots, in that arena, you need knockout potential of your own, realistically.
Yeah. Oh, I so like Traction. I just love the way it looks. Right then.
So 1 to 5 for Lockjaw, 6 for Traction.
Okay.
It's a 3. The favourite goes through. I miss the upsets now. As upset as I was.
Oh dear. Well done, Lockjaw. Okay, so up next we have Predator versus Beast.
Do we even know what Predator does yet?
No.
I think it's a lifter / sort of grabber. Don't know if it self-rights.
Your guess is as good as mine.
Not even certain that it drives. This is a tricky one because we've said that we have to assume it's working at the best we've seen it work, which means that we've almost got to discount it immediately, which is harsh, but...
Yeah, we can't do it on potential here. It's like we've never seen it do anything useful, so we've got to assume that in this fight it's going to do nothing useful. Beast was pretty good, if I remember correctly, or like all right anyway.
Beast was reasonable. I think it's at the lower end of the kind of UK flipper tier chart.
Yeah, because it was quite underweight, wasn't it?
I think you're thinking of the Russian robot that I can't quite remember the name of that was in one of the World Series.
Okay.
It was the one that Jonathan Pierce always made a load of sort of noise about it not having any armour. It's like, well, it's got bars of armour. That's how that armour works. It's actually quite a good idea.
Yeah, fair enough.
I feel bad making it another 5-1, but we're not even sure if Predator can self-right. So...
Yeah, well, it's 1 and 5 in this case, isn't it?
Yeah, 1 and 5.
Mr. Pedantic about the ordering of these things.
Hey, these things can matter.
Deary me.
I'm tempted to give us sympathy 2 and 4, but that's not right.
No, because Predators
There's no sympathy.
Predators never worked, so we've got to assume it's not going to work this time. There's a very slim chance. Well, I say slim. Slimmer than 1 in 6 chance of this going to work, but 1 in 6 is all we can do.
Yeah, 1 in 6 is the worst we can offer. Here goes.
A 2.
I mean, do we claim that that's close, even though that's not how die rolls work?
That is not how that works, but for the purposes of suspense, we're going to call that a close fight. That Beast just barely won.
Predator did self-right once. And then was flipped and stayed down.
That's the best display we've ever seen from Predator.
The worst thing is, that's almost true. That's the closest it's come to winning a fight.
Oh,
I don't mean to be mean. It's just, that's the truth.
Deary me.
Next up, in what's sure to be a far closer fight, it's Yeti versus Double Jeopardy.
Closer?
I mean, Double Jeopardy's weapon has worked.
That is
twice.
true, yeah.
It broke a bit of Mecha Rampage and it broke a bit of Gamma 9.
Would it do anything significant to Yeti, do we think?
I mean, you can't rule out the possibility of a good hit from the cannon.
What would it have to hit on Yeti for that to make a difference? Because it's not as if the cannon was overly powerful, if memory serves.
It was powerful enough that when it struck Mecha Rampage's already spinning bar, it broke the bar.
Okay.
So you can see it doing weapon damage to Yeti as well, which would then make for a pushing fight between a very loosely armoured sort of wedge in Double Jeopardy and what would be essentially a rectangle with a free spinning cylinder on the front of it. Well, that would have the forks, actually. The forks would still be there.
Yeah.
The forks are a game changer now I think about it.
I think even if Double Jeopardy's cannon did the worst possible thing, I still don't think it would. It's not enough to take out Yeti. I wouldn't have thought.
It's worse than a 1 in 6 chance of a hit that immediately KOs Yeti.
I don't think we can justifiably do this anything other than 1 and 5 again.
Oh, 5 and 1 in this case.
Oh my god! It's like a game of tennis with who could be more pedantic.
It's gonna go a few sets. Yeah, I think it has to be 5 and 1. We should point out that we expect these to get closer as the tournament goes on.
Yes.
This is the pre-qualifier stage. This is Son of Waiachi versus the weird neon thing and the Swarm.
I wonder if towards the end of the tournament we're going to need 2 dice. Because I'm not sure if 6 options here is enough.
Yeah, but that then gets weird with the probability of numbers being different. We might need to do a random number generator at some point.
That's
but
true,
I think
yeah.
we stick to the die.
Okay.
We are recognising and embracing the random nature of robot combat. Maybe we need a 7-sided die. Just so we don't have a 3 and 3.
Yeah.
Can you get die with an odd number of sides?
I have no idea.
Are any of the platonic solids odd numbered?
What have we got? We got the triangle one, which is 4.
Yeah.
Got the cube, which is 6. I'm holding one. What's the next one?
I mean, you're the one that's made paper models
I
of
have
them.
made paper models of one. There's one that's made out of pentagons.
There's 12, I think.
Yeah. I doubt there's any with an odd number.
17 is a possibility.
I think we're stretching too far here. We should bring it back. We're going to stick with our single die, and our single dice. Just to annoy Ryan there.
You just lost a point in pedantic tennis.
It was a tactical loss to make you feel a bit more confident, and then I'm going to destroy you with a serve a bit later on. That was a sports reference.
A very rare sports reference from Sam.
What are we talking about? Yeti versus... No. Yes?
Yeti versus Double Jeopardy. It's 5 to 1.
5 to 1. Are you ready?
So if it's a 6, Double Jeopardy gets it. Anything else, it's Yeti.
Hey!
Well, damn it.
It's a 6.
Sorry, Alaska, it's a 6. You know how I said last time I missed the upsets?
I mean, these are the most ridiculous upsets as well. Expulsion and this winning.
So how does this happen, Sam? We've got to go through it.
I don't know.
The shot comes in, pings off of the wall, comes back into the rear end of Yeti and somehow takes a battery.
I mean, that's ridiculously far-fetched.
I mean, we have seen Yeti have a catastrophic failure against Icewave.
What happened against Icewave?
The first big contact, I think they had a wire come loose on a speed controller, potentially. Something like that. Something very, very fiddly internally went wrong. So it's not unprecedented.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're going to have to go with, isn't it? I mean,
that's what we're going to reach for.
What we can safely say is that in real life, the probability of this is far less than 1 in 6. But here we are. So up next, we have a fight that's never been seen before, never happened, probably never will happen. Minotaur versus Blacksmith.
Yeah, there are no data points to work on from
We've
this.
got, we got nothing to go on here. Purely hypothetical.
This is a tricky one because there's a history to it that sends you one way, but then when you actually look at the most recent fight, it's pretty even.
What is the history? Who's won Yeti? Not Yeti.
I mean, it's a drum, I'll give you that.
God damn it. Has Minotaur won every time?
Yes, both times. First time by knockout, second time by judge's decision, if I remember rightly. The first one is the fight, where it very slowly and comprehensively took apart Blacksmith's front until it eventually burst into flames.
Yeah.
The second one, Blacksmith ran the forks, the extremely effective forks, which completely nullified any attack to the front.
This is tricky, because we've got to assume they're going to have the forks for this fight.
Oh yeah, they definitely run with that. We can say that confidently because that's what they did.
Yeah, so they definitely have those forks in this hypothetical fight. I mean, it's pretty even. I don't know if you're willing to go for a 3-3 or not. Because it was even in the second time they fought, you said it was a judge's decision.
I think we can easily justify not doing a 3-3 with a 4-2 in Minotaur's favour just because it has won both those fights.
Something I forgot to ask at the beginning. Do we have accommodation in this tournament for judges' decisions?
I think what we're doing now is accommodating them.
Okay.
I may have made a specific rule, but we're not going to
You're going to ignore the rule
have a
now.
draw and then phone Naomi Kyle and let her make a decision.
You had to pick Naomi, didn't you?
It was the only one I could think of at the time. Okay, Bobak Fadowski, Lisa Winters, Derek Young, the random astronaut they get on once a season.
Okay. I mean,
if you want to petition for 3-3, I'll let it happen for this one. But I think 4-2 is morally the correct choice.
The thing is, on paper, I think it is 3-3.
It's not played on paper, though, is it? Because that's not exactly what we're doing here.
I'm literally going to roll this die on paper now.
Are you rigid on 3-3? I'll do it if you're insistent. I've got to stop doing the Trump hand.
Yes.
I notice myself doing it every time.
Oh, dearie me. I want to go 3-3.
I'll allow it. So it's 1-2-3 for Minotaur, 4-5-6 for Blacksmith.
Yeah.
In your heart of hearts, when you roll this, what are you going to be hoping for?
Minotaur.
Same.
Yeah.
Means it's really a 4-2, isn't it, Sam? But we'll go with it.
Well, no, because I honestly think it would go to the judges again.
Yeah, and I think Minotaur will win it. But I've said you can have 3-3.
Okay.
I've made this one exception
concession
for you.
You ready? What does that mean? Is it 1? I forgot.
1 is Minotaur.
Okay, Minotaur wins.
I was just waiting for your reaction and none came.
That's because I had forgotten which numbers we said we're going to win.
I thought this was a simple concept.
It's a very simple concept. You were just working with a far stupider person than you thought. Minotaur wins them.
Minotaur wins.
By judge's decision.
Unlucky, Al. Unlucky.
Unlucky. One day you'll get it.
Next up. It's actually one of the... We haven't had very many... I know we've had mostly Battlebots versus Robot Wars. I'll roll with this. It's PP3D versus Chromefly.
Yes.
I want this to be cut and dried. But I feel like I've been unfair to Chromefly in the past. And this is my chance to rectify it.
Chromefly has directly attached their motors to their weapons.
Yes. And I asserted, and I believe you asserted as well, when we first spoke about them, that we saw no way they could do any meaningful damage. And then I saw the amount of damage they had actually done to Bronco with a couple of hits. I wonder if this is kind of a reach question, this fight, in a way, because you've got two spinners that aren't going to be contacting each other. You've got the high angle spinner of Chromefly with a good chance of hitting the body of PP3D. Got PP3D's undercutter. Is that going to reach wheels and things effectively enough? My
memory of Chromefly is that its reach is quite short. Like, I think its bars aren't the world's longest bars, and I have a feel. I would say that PP3D has more reach, although I guess because it's an undercutter, it's got to get closer to do anything with that, hasn't it? Really.
Although it has the advantage that it's got a much wider sort of arc of attack. Can we just get the image up a bit more clearly so we can take a proper look at Chromefly and take a look at the reach on it? I mean, it's not short. Do we take the drone into account as well?
I mean, the drone's not going to do anything.
The Chrome drone.
Because the drones never do anything, much to my eternal disappointment. I'm not sure how to. We're
not doing 3 and 3, Sam.
I know. I don't think it's 3 and 3. I'm not sure it's 1 and 5 either.
Oh no, it's a 4 and 2.
And I want to give that advantage to PP3D.
Same, especially with home advantage here.
Yeah.
It's the least strongly I've felt, but at the same time, I think that's correct.
Yeah, right.
This is the first time I'm thinking that someone listening might disagree with us. Probably because they think it's 5 and 1.
I mean, my initial reaction when I saw this lineup was 5 and 1, just because in my head, Chromefly is so awful. But I think you're right. That's an unfair view to have. So yeah, 4 and 2. So 1 to 4 to PP3D. Is that the right? Yes.
Yep.
Nailed it.
5 and 6 to Chromefly.
Chromefly. You ready? Close fight. It's a 4.
That big judge's decision.
Well done, PP3D.
PP3D marches on.
Okay, so moving on, we have Apex versus Invader.
This is one of those times where I had to include a robot that I didn't really want to.
Okay.
But I couldn't say that Invader and Gigabyte were the same robot in any good conscience. Because there's a big time period between them. I know that Gigabyte was pretty much a new build. And because Invader's only appearance was in a pre-qualifier where it failed so badly they had to wait for the batteries to die down to even be able to turn it off. It just sat there, spinning, not responding to anything.
Oh my goodness me.
But Apex isn't the most reliable either.
You don't say.
This could be This is basically Tombstone versus Gigabyte, the unreliable edition.
I mean, this is almost going to be 3 and 3 for completely different reasons, isn't it?
Can nobody win?
I mean, I don't know. I almost want to do 1 and 6, but like, as in like, with just a hole in the middle, you know?
I mean, we could. You'd be re-rolling though.
But I don't know what we do in that case. Like, how do you deal with that hole? I don't think. I know you sort of said that it was, it couldn't be turned off. That's not going to cause it to lose a fight though. Whereas I think Apex.
But it also wasn't responding to driving.
Okay.
It was immobile, but still spinning at full power.
So if that happened in a real fight, they'd be counted out, and then
Yeah.
the audience would be sad for however long it takes to run the battery down.
You're out, and you've pissed everyone off.
Did Apex have any other fights other than their ridiculous destroy the arena one?
They had a melee that they lost quite quickly. Pulsar just punted them.
Okay. And then when they blew up, it was because... Was that when Traction... Was that the one that did it? That sort of like sent their bar flying because they had the wedge?
Mm. They also had a melee in that episode that I think involved Terahertz and Vulture, maybe? Can't quite recall. It's one of the only ones I haven't written that down for, actually.
I mean, I almost want to sort of give an advantage to Apex just because it made it to an arena.
I almost want to give it to Invader, because Invader is basically the old Megabyte, which we do know was quite good. I think we know what's happening here, don't we?
You're stretching quite a lot. I mean, I genuinely don't know how to do... I don't want to do 3 and 3 because it's like 3 and 3 for the wrong reasons.
I don't want to do 3 and 3, but we have to accept that out of this first 64 fights, a couple are going to happen.
Yeah.
And this seems like a valid one. Same as before.
Okay.
I can't justify either of these being better than the other.
No, fair enough. So 1 to 3 to Apex, 4 to 6 to Invader.
Before we do that, is Arena really going to play a part in this, or are we saying they're both unreliable enough that they're their own problem?
I don't think the arena's going to make much of a difference at all, is it? I mean, Apex is going to blow up no matter which arena it's in. And it's going to do comparable damage in both, I would have thought.
Yeah, that's fair. So we'll allow it a 3 and 3.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3 for Apex, 4, 5, 6 for Invader.
It's a 4.
It is a 4, and I am vaguely satisfied with that result. Invader going through.
That would be one of those boring fights that is either cut or we complain about still being in. Or maybe what happened is because, in let's say that Invader didn't spin up, right, and then it's got the wedges on the side. Apex comes in, hits that, and did what it did against Traction and sends itself, blows up, and then therefore Invader wins by default. There we go.
Even if they hadn't moved.
Head cannon.
It's a fun one now. The Kegs versus Terra Turtle. We knew it could happen.
Yeah.
We have 2 robots from the same team.
Who's driving them? Because you need 3 drivers now.
Possibly 4, because Terra Turtle did have a mini-bot.
Oh my goodness me. 4 drivers from a team of how many people? Was it just one guy or is it...
Well, bear in mind that this team teamed up with the bigger brother team to do the swarm. So they have a set of 4 drivers there.
Okay.
So let's say that they're roping in that help. Or we're just cloning them. That's also fine.
For the purposes of this discussion, they have drivers. Fully autonomous robots, maybe. I've got to give to the kegs the advantage here.
Oh, yeah, because Terra Turtle was awful.
Yeah.
I think am I right in thinking Terra Turtle has never won a fight?
I have no... probably.
I think it may have won one by default in the international special that we don't speak of. It's the only time I can think of that it might have.
This is a fiberglass robot as well, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All the best robots are.
Well, I don't know. I still really like the kegs being made out of old kegs.
Oh, yeah, and it was even better realising that they had wooden bases.
It's just... Oh, dear.
We're giving it to the kegs. How much are we giving it to them? Is it a 5-1?
I mean, I think it's probably a 5-1, isn't it?
I feel like if there's any robot that Terra Turtle could be a 4-2 against, the kegs is probably it. But
but like under what's right? Explain to me the scenario in which Terra Turtle wins this.
5-1. Yep. I should point out I do really like the kegs. It's just the fact that they are the same build philosophy in terms of let's just get whatever materials we have and build a robot. That's what makes them perhaps a little more evenly matched in my eyes. But I agree, it's a 5-1.
Right then, so let's do it. It's a 4. Shockingly, the kegs have won.
Boo! That would have been a great upset to have.
Next fight, Stinger, the Killer Bee, versus Escape Velocity.
So we've got choices to make on both robots here. What weapon Stinger is running, and whether Escape Velocity is running the full body spinner mini-bot or just full weight main robot.
What are the weapon choices for Stinger?
So Stinger has the sort of claw lifters or the lifter wedge.
I think in any case, Escape Velocity is going in with 2 robots, isn't it?
No, they can run the main robot at full weight with extra armour.
Yeah, but like I don't think they're going to in this fight.
Yeah, I agree. They probably...
Because I would have thought the philosophy with this robot is for most things they have the 2 robots. And then they put the armor on if they're fighting someone that's got a higher energy weapon that can damage them meaningfully. And I don't think Stinger does.
Yeah, I do wonder if they'd maybe value having a little more weight against a lifter. Because I think they'd worry that the 2... I mean, they're getting bullied no matter what.
Yeah.
But with 2 robots, they might fear that each one will individually get bullied more.
But it's not as if, I mean, obviously the weight will make it harder for Stinger to lift them, but like Stinger's going to be able to lift them anyway. Like they've built that thing to lift full heavyweight things. And it's not as if it's like a flipper where the weight is going to change how high they get thrown because Stinger's just lifting them.
Yeah, I'll go with that logic. I think they consider it, but I agree they would probably go with the mini-bot.
I think there'd be a mini-bot, and then I would guess as well that Stinger would probably go with their more wedge-like thing on the assumption that they're facing something resembling a spinner.
That's what I was going with, although because it's such a lightweight spinner, I think there'd also be an argument for using the forks for ground clearance purposes, because you are up against a flipper. It's it's very game theory-ish, this.
We could toss a coin for this. Introduce some more randomness.
I love that. Not roll a die, toss a coin.
Well, you got to have other ways of arbitrarily deciding these things. I'm happy either... I think I'm happy either way with Stinger, but my heart is telling me they'd go with the wedge.
I think it's so 50-50 that I'll happily run with that. It's what I would go with.
How much of a difference do we think that would make to the fight?
Oh, none. Escape Velocity still loses.
Okay, right. Stinger with the wedge, Escape Velocity with the mini-bot.
Yeah, it's a flipper and an underweight spinner against an invertible robot. Even if they manage to use the main bot effectively enough for the full body spinner to take a couple of wheels, it's got 6 of them. Yeah.
Was Escape Velocity's flipper actually any good at throwing things or not?
I'm not sure we ever really got to see it in action properly.
In any case, it's not. We can safely say it's not a Bronco style thing, is it?
Oh no, not at all. It's a really interesting flipper.
Yeah.
But it's not at the power levels of Bronco or even really something like Lucky from what we saw of it.
What numbers are you feeling then?
Oh, I think it's 5-1 all day.
5-1. Okay, I'll go with that.
So 1 to 5 for Stinger, a lonely 6 for Escape Velocity.
It's a 6.
Now, I trust the die. It's from Settlers of Catan. It's a high quality die, but the fact that was rolled by a SpaceX fan makes me suspicious.
The game is rigged. Escape Velocity wins.
We now have one of those rare Battlebots versus Robot Wars fights in the Ringmaster versus Terahertz.
Interesting.
Interesting, and I think quite clear-cut.
Do you?
The Ringmaster is a good spinner, but bear in mind that Terahertz very easily beat Carbide when they matched up.
How does the Ringmaster drive? I must have been blown away by this the first time we saw it, to be honest, with its ridiculous wheels.
They called it vector drive. It's sort of proportional thrust almost.
Yeah.
That's not the way to describe it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, is this going to be a very short discussion then?
I was hoping you might disagree with me, I'll be honest, because...
Well, I mean, it's like almost a full body spinner thing, and I don't know, like it feels like that should pack a lot of power. But then I guess Terahertz has just got that. It's just got really good armor at the front of it.
Yeah, and I don't think the Ringmaster is easy enough to control that it's going to get around the back.
No, I don't think it's mobile enough. I doubt it's fast enough.
The one thing I will say against Terahertz is that when it beat Carbide, it did it by pitting, where in the Battlebots arena we have no pit.
That is true.
And the knockout potential of Terahertz is limited.
It would probably win by judges, wouldn't it then? Would be the most
purely
likely.
on controlling the fight.
Yeah.
But then I suppose I was going to say that maybe something similar could happen as did in Tombstone Beta with the axe mechanism getting damaged, but I think it's better protected on Terahertz than it is on Beta.
Because Beta is, I might be very wrong, I feel like Beta's a lower robot, isn't it? Or like the mount point, I mean maybe it's just because they're scaled differently, but in my head the mount point for Beta's hammer is lower than Terahertz. But it might just be that Beta is proportionally wider and therefore looks flatter.
I think Beta is wider, flatter, and has a less aggressive angle on the wedge.
Yeah.
Terahertz has the metal wedge, and then it also has an even steeper angle on the polycarb up above it. That I think is better at sending things around the hammer mechanism.
Yeah.
I'm not going to call this a 5-1.
Okay.
I think there are ways the Ringmaster can win, especially under Battlebots judges' rules. I could see how it's going to get a lot of hits in with its weapon.
Yeah.
Which, even if they're not doing massive damage, could add up. Whereas Terahertz has got the challenge of timing the weapon.
Yes.
You okay?
Sorry, just wait for a good hit. Just made me laugh. That meme will never be old to me. Yeah, I think if it were in the Robot Wars arena, I think it'd be more clear cut towards Terahertz. But I think you're right that it being in Battlebots makes a difference here. So I think 4-2.
Yeah, the ability to control the opponent isn't as decisive in this arena.
Yes, it's 2-4. Actually, I'm just going to correct myself quickly.
Does that mean you win or lose a point in pedant tennis?
I mean, I beat you to the pedantry, so surely that means I win a point.
But you're also the cause of the pedantry.
This is true.
I'm getting a point for being pedantic about how the game works.
I know. Okay, fine. You win this round.
So, 1 and 2 for Ringmaster, 3, 4, 5, 6 for Terahertz. I don't know why I'm still explaining this.
Well.
That happened.
It's a 2 and Ringmaster wins.
I mean, it's not the biggest upset in the world.
No.
But as soon as it comes up against a vertical, I'm making sure it gets dumped out.
And I'm glad that you always do the numbers, because I would roll the dice, go look at it and go, I don't know what that means. So
I thought you had a more mathematical brain than this.
No.
But isn't coding just maths with words?
No, not the kind of. I mean, it can be, but not the kind of coding I do. It's interesting with maths. Like I can do like calculus and stuff. Like I'm quite good at that. I can do a lot of like the high level math. But when it comes to arithmetic, I am awful. As soon as you tell me like what is 7 times 5, genuinely don't
35.
know. I'd have to work it out.
Fair play. We weren't going to get sidetracked.
So up next we have, how do you pronounce this? Lycan?
I'd say Lycan.
Lycan versus Mecha Rampage.
Lycan's an interesting one. I think it's a robot that a lot of people have forgotten about that was actually quite a cool robot. So it's theoretically a grabber, although it has no actual control over the grabbing mechanism. It just runs with the wheels. So it's really a glorified wedge/plow.
How does it run with the wheels?
I
Do you
think
mean
it's vaguely sort of cam operated.
does
or
it like
something.
open and close as it tries?
Yeah, it's just literally going no, as I recall. And even if it were controllable, it's so high up the wedge. This is just one of those ways of bringing a wedge to Battlebots. But I really like it because it was ridiculously fast.
What a ridiculous weapon mechanism. How can you justify that as an active weapon? That's mad.
To be fair, they were put into the pre-qualifiers, so I feel like they weren't... They were accepted, but not fully accepted.
Right on the edge. Okay.
They have come up against a spinner before. They came up against Invader when it was working. And they kind of took the hits. There was some damage to the wedge plough thing.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the firmest of wedges.
No, it's such a big wedge, isn't it?
Yeah. It's very big and menacing, but it doesn't look like it's taking a lot of hits.
And also, if it did get hit round the back, it's very susceptible to damage there.
Yeah.
When it had its one fight, Mohawk did get some good bites on the wheels, but didn't quite do enough, whereas a spinner, even like Mecha Rampage, which isn't necessarily the most powerful, you feel like would be able to do some damage there.
Yeah. I vaguely remember Mecha Rampage being more effective than I thought it would be.
Yes and no. We saw it do a bit of damage to free shipping in its first fight before it caught fire.
Yeah.
After that, we didn't see a great deal from it. The Whiplash fight in particular, it basically got jammed up once and then just stood against a wall, which is what I fear Lycan might be able to do to it, just by having the pushing power and the speed.
I'm not sure how to do this then.
It's a tough one. I think it has to go in Mecha Rampage's favour. But I don't know if that's just a bit of bias on my part, because I really like Mecha Rampage. I'd like Lycan as well, but especially because it's older.
This is another one of those situations where I feel like I want fractional things here. Like I want more gradation than just the three options that we have.
Well, you're not getting it.
I know I'm not getting it, but like I feel like we need it.
Not getting it.
Right, then, well, it's going to be 4-2 to Mecha Rampage then.
Yeah, I feel like a 3-3 would also be valid, but we don't like 3-3.
Well, this is what I mean when I say we need a gradation in there, because there's clearly something between 2-4 and 3-3.
No, there's not, Sam. That doesn't exist. This is intentional design of the game.
Right then, I'll give you final call on what this should be then.
I think it is 2-4 against Lycan.
Okay.
If there were gradations, we would be using them, but there aren't. So 1-2 for Lycan, 3-4, 5-6 for Mecha Rampage. And Lycan does the business.
We're getting a lot of underdogs here.
I mean, that's not a massive underdog story, but seeing as a 1 came out, it would also have won if we made it 5-1.
Yes.
So
yeah, okay.
the whole thing was pointless.
The whole discussion, utterly redundant. Okay.
Up next, we have Deviled Egg versus Bronco.
I have no memory. We've just looked it up. We've got a picture of Deviled Egg here, and as far as I'm concerned, this is the first time I've ever seen it.
I think it only had Science Channel bonus fights.
Okay, that would
So
explain.
it was in a melee against, I think it was Sharkoprian and Kraken. It also had another fight that involved Axe Backwards and possibly Basilisk.
Okay.
It did some damage. It was a reasonable drum spinner. But it's also against Bronco, which makes life kind of easy, doesn't it? Especially given that it doesn't utilise a feeder wedge.
Yeah,
You feel like Bronco's having a very nice time here.
I think this is a pretty clear thing. I mean, I'll say that if Bronco puts their stupid wings on, then they're sort of opening themselves up a little bit there. Although they do have the very flat sides with the exposed wheels, so they'd probably do it anyway, wouldn't they?
I think now they might consider not running the wings. But at the time, they would have definitely run them.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those ones where you're better off just maximising the potential of your weapon in this case, because this isn't one of those situations against a vertical where they're in major danger of the front tip of the flipper being bent up. You might as well just go in and punt them to the ceiling.
Yeah.
Just be yourself.
Well, I think that Bronco would still... I think they'd have the wings in this fight. I do think they'd do it.
I think they would, yeah. I'm not sure it'd be the best choice, but at the same time, I don't think it'd cost them the fight.
No. Because they did it, because I feel like they had... I've always maintained that they're a silly idea, because they just make it really easy for robots to get under them. Like, it makes it much harder for them to get their weapon... Well, it means that they spend a lot more time kind of like bouncing around than they would otherwise, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if a robot is coming into their sides, they're in trouble no matter what.
Yeah.
So I don't know if maybe for them, they'd rather be riding on top of a robot than being pushed by them.
Yeah.
Because then they can flip themselves off if they need to.
Yeah.
I agree, they have not necessarily done the job they wanted them to. It does save them some damage, but at the cost of control in the fight.
Okay. Got any thoughts on that?
I think it's still a 1 and 5.
Yeah.
For all the discussion, it's still a 1 and 5.
Yeah, okay. You ready then?
I'm so ready.
Just roll it. It's a 5.
Bronco goes through. That's
Bronco.
absolutely fine.
Bronco hath won. Up next, Monsoon versus Ultimo Destructo.
So many decisions to make with Ultimo Destructo. We have 2 versions. If we choose the modern one, we have weapons to decide. I think we have weapons to decide on the other one as well. I just don't know what they were.
Which one was more effective?
Technically speaking, the modern one won more fights. What had to be done to win those fights is a question, but I think it just makes sense to go with the more modern one. I don't think either is inherently better than the other, so we might as well just go most modern.
Yeah, I mean, this is the decision that matters, isn't it? Because we've got to stick with it for the rest of the tournament.
I mean, they're facing a 5-1 here, so...
Right, so modern one, I mean, I would argue that the weapon is completely arbitrary. They'd probably go with a horizontal spinner.
I think they go horizontal spinner as well, and that is the only thing that could possibly give Monsoon any trouble here.
Yeah.
Because it does slightly negate some of their hits. And to be honest, Monsoon did have trouble. If the bar got hit, it didn't like it.
Yeah, if the bar got hit, that kind of ended their fight almost every time, didn't it? Because it ended up hitting themselves.
Although their big issue was hitting stuff when they were inverted, coming to a hard stop with the bar coming down and that messing things up.
Yeah.
Hits from the side, maybe not such an issue, but it would be worth bearing in mind. It would probably make them less aggressive.
Yeah. I still think it's within the bounds of a 5-1.
Oh, it's beyond a 5-1.
Okay, so 1-5 to Monsoon, 6 Ultimo Destructo.
Yep.
It's a 2, so Monsoon of 1.
Phew.
Shocker. Who saw that coming?
Finally, for this edition, we have Chomp versus Glitterbomb.
Well, I think the first thing is it's clearly going to be a judge's decision.
That's if Glitterbomb's axe works more than once. We're in the battle box.
We're in the battle box, so there's
So
no...
yeah, it's going to be a judge's decision, you're right.
There's no easy win here. It's going to go to the judges. I mean, I want to give it to Chomp because Chomp is his weapon works.
We have a history of Chomp winning fights.
Yeah.
Chomp has been a quarter-finalist in Battlebots.
Yeah.
Glitterbomb has fallen over in a melee and then arrived overweight for another tournament. That is Glitterbomb's checkered past.
Yeah.
Again, bias is falling in here, but Chomp better win this.
But what numbers are we going to give? What are the odds here?
Well, it has to be a 5-1. That's the best we can offer.
A 5-1, despite the fact we know it's going to the judges.
To be fair, you can envisage a way that Chomp loses this fight. It's nothing to do with Glitterbomb, but you can envisage a way that Chomp loses it.
Yeah.
Although Chomp is ultra reliable, at least.
Yeah. Has Chomp ever been knocked out? I know it's very rare.
I don't believe so.
I don't think it's ever been knocked out. Yeah, 5-1.
It's a 5-1.
5-1 to Chomp. Final roll of the episode, then. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I don't know what I want this to be. That's a 3.
Phew! Chomp go through.
Chomp hath won.
Admittedly, I was quite looking forward to telling the story of how Chomp loses that fight, but save that for another day.
Thankfully, we don't need to.
So that is 16 of the first 64 fights. What have we done?
What can of worms have we... possibly it's worth noting that we had intended to do all 32.
That was until we started recording an
Now.
hour late.
And then, I think even if we were recording on time, we've been going for an hour and a half now. Whew.
So, in the show notes will be the results of every fight we have done. There will also be the list of upcoming fights for this whole round. So it'll be 16 more 1v1s and then 32 three-way melees. So, if you want to take a look at those and advise us on some numbers, we will completely ignore them. No, we always listen to our listeners.
Oh, dear. Well.
Rules will also be in the show notes. Everything will be in the show notes. The show notes are all-encompassing.
The show notes are going to be pretty intense. I think we can say that.
They're going to be pretty everywhere.
Well, you can find said show notes for this episode at spinnerproof.com/episodes/46. And there you can find links to the rules, the robots, the everythings. You can also find a link to our Twitter at Spinnerproof, where you can tweet to us your, two things. 1, a name for this tournament, and 2, what you think the outcome is going to be for each fight.
And 3, your favourite number on a die. I generally don't understand Google Docs. They don't behave in the way a normal word processor would. And it upsets me greatly.
In what way? What confusing to you?
Just the things that happen when you create a new line or get rid of a line tend to be different to what I'm expecting.
Okay, well, I've never really... Well, obviously I have used things other than Google Docs, but not for a long time. So this is just... I don't do a lot of word processing.
To be fair, I'm used to OpenOffice, which probably isn't correct either. So
Well,
I've had a lot of people, mostly salesmen of computers, try to talk me out of using OpenOffice. I feel like that was just a strategy to sell me Microsoft Office.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with OpenOffice.
Yeah, they're saying, no, it's really resource inefficient. It's like, fine. It always recovers when I want it to. That's the most important thing to me, because I leave unsafe documents open far too much.
Even if OpenOffice is in any way resource inefficient, I promise you that Microsoft Office is no better.
That also sounds fair. So I just don't understand why anyone pays for Office. There's free versions that are almost as good. And the cost of Office is ridiculous.
I suspect at the high end, there are differences.
If I were using Excel a lot, then it might start to become an issue. I think there are probably features in Excel that are better and far more streamlined in actual Office.
Yeah, the stuff. I mean, the stuff that people do in Excel basically amounts to software development inside of Excel. It's just ridiculous how far you can go with the formulas and the scripting and stuff you can do in there. But there's other stuff with Office as well. Like I can't imagine. Like, I agree with you in terms of like Microsoft Word. I think that's probably not worth paying for on its own. But like, there's a bunch of other stuff that you get with Office, like Excel, but also things like Outlook and all that kind of stuff that are, again, for individuals not that useful. But like, as soon as you get to small businesses and stuff, I think that's where Microsoft makes the vast majority of their money.
Oh yeah, for business use I understand, because that is a business expense.
Yeah.
But for a person to spend the money they want for an individual license, no.
Software's expensive to develop, man.
And you should not get paid for that effort. How do you feel about subscription-based software?
Oh,
Do you think that's a better model?
That's a really tough one, because it's really interesting because I'm on both sides of that, and I'm on two sides of a lot of discussions at work when we talk about data collection and whether or not that should be opt in or opt out. Because like me personally, that should be opt in. From a business point of view, users never change the defaults. So if you want meaningful data, it needs to be opt out. So that's always interesting as well. So the software that I work on is sort of subscription in that you get a license that lasts a year, but there's no like auto billing stuff. So it's not technically a subscription.
If they don't pay the next year, can they still use the software as it was when they stopped paying?
No. That's that kind of model I quite like. There's a few bits of software that do use that model. So
yeah, you're basically subscribing to updates, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think like IntelliJ does that, and I think there might be a few others, but I'm sure there are others that are not software developer oriented like IntelliJ. But yeah, so like with that model, you sort of like pay a big fee to begin with, and then you pay smaller fees per year to keep going updates. And if you stop paying at any point, you just get to keep using that version forever, which I think is a good middle ground. I don't like software like what I work on, where if you stop paying, you can't use it anymore.
The one that always sort of springs to mind when you talk about this kind of thing for me is Adobe Creative Suite.
Yeah.
And the amount of individuals that want to use that. And it is just it's borderline cost prohibitive.
Yeah, I think it sort of depends what you want. Every now and then if I did more video editing, I think I'd probably do one of the, because you can do like a subscription for an individual app, and it's like...
I thought they didn't do that.
You can, so there's, I haven't looked in a little while, but the last time I sort of looked, it's sort of like you can pay some amount of money to just get everything per month, or per year or whatever. You can pay a smaller sum of money that gets you just like any app that you want, but only that one. And that quickly, if you want more than two of those apps, you might as well just go for the give me everything thing, because that's where the crossover in cost is so close. It's ridiculous. But the other bundle that is quite good, if you do a lot of photography, I think you can get like Photoshop and Lightroom and possibly something else for like 10 quid a month or something, which is...
That's not so bad.
If you sort of do photography as a hobby and stuff, it's almost useful. So that if I did more like astrophotography, I'd probably do it, because Lightroom is quite good for that kind of stuff. But
I've always got by with GNU, but that's because I don't do anything particularly complex. I could see myself very quickly becoming frustrated with all of the free alternatives.
Yes, I've tried doing like complicated astrophotography stuff with free tools, and you can get away with it. It's just not quite as nice.
I say, I don't do any astrophotography. I'm just doing manipulation of existing images, so that's quite easy. Or just do vector graphics, because they're more fun.